in my heart, I knew that's who I'd met. And from that experience, I began to, in my peripheral vision, have the sense of angels walking with me. And I didn't even know what an angel was, but I knew that's what they were. And I started having these direct knowings where I just knew, but I didn't know why I knew, but it had that energy of the garden. So it's just something that I learned to trust. And then when I was about 18 or 19, my early 20s, let's say, I began receiving direct messages from ascended masters and archangels. And I put these guides through every test because I was having an experience I've always wanted to have with the universe, but I also wanted to make sure I wasn't just completely insane. And as I began having this direct communication with the ascended masters and archangels, they began inspiring me to go and deliver messages to people, like in the grocery store. And if I didn't, I felt like my heart was going to explode. And so that was a little interesting, just going up to people in the produce aisle and, hey, you don't know me, but your grandmother wants me to say this to you. And people would have these very overwhelming experiences. And I didn't really know how I was doing what I was doing. I just knew how to do it. And it led to all these other synchronicities. And I was led to a bookstore to take a psychic development class. And in the third week, they asked me to teach it. And I laughed. I'm here to learn. I know what you're talking about. And then they said, can you do a reading? What's a reading? And I would just sit down and it would happen. And within a short amount of time, I began guiding the lives of many people who would come to me, and videos got put up on YouTube. And, you know, years later, after just serving humanity, I think my YouTube page has about 20 million views or something. And it's, for me, this is the fulfillment of my entire life's dream, where when most kids my age were dreaming of being the next Michael Jordan or being a police officer, I was dreaming of serving spirit.
And you're doing it.
Oh my God.
That's he's living his dream,
story.
actually.
When you're talking about meeting people
yeah.
and just using the guidance to say those things. I have a confession. Like when I was first awakening, I would fantasize about what it would be like to have that gift. And now, like, I'm hearing you actually did that. And I think the reason why I fantasized about that is when you know the other side is so real, the way that you can share details with someone else that no one else would know, but the other side is a way of getting attention from spirit.
Did you have any funny experiences when that started happening?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I remember going to a grocery store and saying to someone like next to the oranges, like, hi, you don't know me. Before you run away, let me just say this. I'm being asked to say this by spirit. And if I don't, my heart's going to explode. So here we go. Blah, blah, blah. Here's the message from spirit.
I'd love to have been the fly on the wall there.
Me too. I know.
Yeah.
So what happened next?
And they just burst into tears. Oh my God. I was processing the loss of this relative. How did you know I needed to know that? And I said, well, I was just told to pass that on. I'm just the messenger.
That's beautiful.
And, you know, there's so many experiences I've had in my life of things like this, of, you know, sitting in front of someone at an event and this energy of light comes through me and pulsates into the presence of someone who was at stage 4 cancer. And they happened to go to the doctor the next day, and it went from like 80% cancer to like 20% cancer. And what's interesting is that when I was a kid, I looked up at the sky one day and I said, I want to know the glory of divine will. And I want to have a front row seat and see the miracles of the divine throughout my life. And humbly, I get to do that. I get to sit front row. I get to be the space in which this comes through, which I know, Lee, you know all about that. And I get to then walk away just as flipped out as what came through me, because I'm such a fan of this field and I'm such a student of this work. And for me, the work that I do with my audience, our audience, because it's really our world together, is I love this work. I love discovery. I love magic, and I love being able to be a space to show people that magic is real. The other side is reality. Me talking to my parents who are both on the other side and talking to them about the book that, I wrote that's coming out next year. That's not a fantasy. That's my everyday life. And when I was a kid, I would be mesmerized by magicians. And in my heart, I didn't want to know how the trick worked because I knew magic was real. And so for me, this is a way for me to help not only just heal others and awaken their heart to love and unity, but to really help remind people that magic is real because it's what we are.
How beautiful. What was one of the tests that you would put your guides through?
I would ask the same questions over and over again to see what the answer was. I was trained very early by my guides as I was putting through the test, and they said, look, it's not about who we say we are, it's about the quality of the content of what we say. And you will never hear us say anything that is out of alignment with what we're here to share with you. So I would ask the same questions over and over again. And it didn't matter and I would also do this thing where every guide had to have a specific color, picture, that every time I talked to them, it had to be the same. And if they wanted to introduce me to a new guide, it had to come through someone I already knew. And it was this very specific thing I did because I just wanted to make sure, because if I'm gonna do this work and I'm gonna work with people's most sensitive areas, I want to know that what I'm doing is compelling and is reliable, because I take very seriously people's trust and people's traumas that we're all healing. So I would ask the same questions over and over again. They would say things and I would go, why is that? And just to see, would the personality change? Would they get frustrated? Would the content ever change? And in the 15, 20 years I've been working with the Ascended Masters and Archangels all day, nothing's ever changed. And what was amazing for me was the greatest thing I've learned from working with these beings is how they treated me with respect and love in their presence. And my mission was always, I transmit the consciousness, I transmit the teachings, but to treat every person the way the masters treat me, because that's what they're really teaching me.
Beautiful.
At what point, Matt, did you believe that what you had was accurate enough so that you could do what you do? In other words, do you not doubt it anymore and say, okay, I've got it, or let's say I don't have it, but I believe it's true and real and I can be used? Right.
Funny answer is 10 years into my career. But the thing is that, it was after 10 years of doing this work that I finally was able to not have those lingering doubts. But what got me into the work before I could resolve my doubts, because you have to resolve some of your doubts as you go through into the field to do the work, was that I would just see and feel that people were just suffering so incredibly, and people were suffering far worse than I've ever suffered. And so there was this original game that I played with myself that I said, I'm going to get so clear that I can feel confident coming out with my message. And then what interrupted that was the recognition that people are just suffering too deeply, that it can't be about this perfect way of doing it. I got to get out there, and my intention is to help. My intention is to serve. And I would ask Spirit every day, let me be exactly what people need for the healing that they deserve and desire. And as I was in the field doing the work, I was being trained. And as a channel, I teach things I've never heard before. I can say things I've never said before. And then I'm outside of myself actually studying what I'm doing and saying. And over 15 years of doing, one-on-one sessions with people, I would listen to the dialogues. I don't really read books. So I would listen to what people would say about other paths. I would hear what I would say in response. And that's how I educated myself, was actually listening to what came through me. And so it was a very interesting process. But what really got me over myself, to be honest, was how deeply people hurt and how deeply I desire to be that space of healing for the people who hurt, including myself.
I want to ask something that's germane to this program. We have a Q&A section. I'll make this fast. And before you came on, one of the questions was from Greece is, how do I get out of the tension, worry, fear, and all that's happening in my country? And it almost makes me nauseous to think about it, and I feel fine as long as I'm meditating, but then it all returns. What would you say?
I would say that one of the fundamental shifts that is imperative to really realize is that what our experiences, and this might be a little bit different from an old paradigm belief, right? An old paradigm belief might say, the way I'm feeling is based on my perception of reality. And there are times where that's absolutely true. But I would say that in this new paradigm, what we're finding is that it's not, or what I would call I am in pain, I am in fear, I am in terror, is actually the fear and terror that I am personally healing for the collective. Mm-hmm. So I am what I identify with and call my own stuff. And then we apply spirituality and say, how can I get myself out of my stuff? And so I can then be in greater access with my better stuff, which is kind of an interesting play of the spiritual ego. Instead, we say, I accept that the terror and fear that I feel is what my energy field is processing and releasing for the collective. And then we start to experience space from that terror and fear so we can process it and release it through our fields versus identify with it and then look for ways to maneuver around or beyond it.
That's a much better answer than I gave.
I think I would like to say it's a complimentary answer.
Yeah,
don't discount what you gave. That was beautiful what you gave.
Yes.
I love hearing the other perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, it's so amazing. It's spirit is like Woodstock, and we're all these different bands. We're all singing the same themes, but we all have different melodies. We all have different words and lyrics and different journeys we take people on. But, I'm of the opinion that every bit of truth, every expression is just a piece of this. And because of how our brains are wired and we have subconscious programming and associations of certain words and phrases, we all need to hear it all different ways in order for it to click. And so I love being able to be on this show together and just share and connect, because truly together we are all helping all of us really wake up together as one. So.
Absolutely. We certainly feel that there is new energy on the planet and that we are entering a new cycle. And I'm just curious as to how that has played into your work and whether you feel a sense of a new cycle beginning.
Oh, absolutely. I think what's interesting is when we think about the spiritual path and the wisdom that is being offered, there are different dimensional perspectives. There is wisdom in the third dimension and the fourth and the fifth and so forth. And so I think what's really interesting is in this new paradigm, I think that what we're finding, or as the new cycle, as you would say, I think what we're finding is that we're redefining the teachings from a space of oneness, so that any sense of division or separation with ourselves isn't being attempted to be resolved by more spiritual division or separation. And I really think that for me, what really struck a chord is, when I had my experience as an 8-year-old, and I've had all these awakenings throughout my life that have been cataclysmic level, holy you-know-what awakenings, where it literally feels like everything of my past exploded and oozed out my ears. And from this perspective, I realized that, love is the highest vibration and the highest truth. And so it became my mission that if there was a teaching to offer to resolve anything, it had to come from the highest place of love. So if we're going to unravel these things called egos, how do we actually do that in a loving way without throwing in a trash can or trying to abandon it? As I often say, if it wouldn't be the way you speak to a child, it might not be the way you would treat yourself. Mm-hmm. So it became my mission to kind of redefine everything through the eyes of love, because if we are becoming more enlightened love beings, then love should be the path that gets us there.
If I can just say so, people tuning into you for the first time on YouTube, I can totally understand what's going on because of the awakening on this planet. They're seeing purity, they're seeing love, they're seeing wisdom and a delivery that you give that is all of those. And that is unusual for today, my friend.
Thank you.
And so I see this very, very clearly in you, and it just enhances everything we've been taught is coming. So what's next in general?
What's next? My God, what is next? Well, there's a 3-word phrase I was taught recently, because I was talking to the universe about what's happening in the planet. Because, it's so easy right now to look at the world and go, everything's going insane. Everything's going crazy. And the 3-word phrase that I always work with the universe on is absorption foreshadows transcendence. And so on an individual and collective level, first we have to be absorbed in a certain condition, to build up pressure like a slingshot or like a volcanic eruption, to then create this transcendent force that takes us beyond the identification of something. So in order for us as a planet to really transcend systemic racism, we've had to go through a period of being fully absorbed in it in a more conscious way, which we experienced over the last year. In order for the divine feminine to come back into equal prominence, we've had to be absorbed in all the ways the feminine is and has been repressed. In order for us to transcend fear, we've had to be absorbed in it. In order for us to transcend division, we've had to be absorbed in it, which has been the majority of what we've experienced during this last year and a half or so forth. So I think what's really interesting is what's next. Right now, we've been experiencing a lot of absorption, and it's making people tired, disillusioned, and it is truly a process that is important to transmutation, but it tends to break down the, energy and vitality of so many energetically sensitive beings. But to answer your question, where we're going next is we're moving through absorption and we're entering into transcendence. Mm-hmm. And I think what it's going to teach people is that it's not just doing your spiritual work and I do my work to then transcend, but that there's also this period of we have to actually be absorbed in something long enough to steep and build up the energy that then gives rise to the acceleration of transcendence. So it's really a balance of co-creation.
I think that's beautiful. What I would love to do now is to have you share one of your channeled processes where you help clear layers of emotional density. It could be this lifetime or a lifetime before, but I think it's a good segue that you just gave that answer to then move into experiencing that.
Yeah, it's thank you very much. I call this process the subtraction method. I was taught it many years ago. And it would start with any time we are feeling any kind of dysregulation in our nervous system, any kind of upsetness. And what we want to first do is we want to locate where the feeling is. It could be your mind, it could be your heart, it could be your stomach, it could be any chakra, it could be an organ or a limb. And then we would ask ourselves to, once we've located it, to label it. What is an adjective I could use to describe this sensation? And we have to know that everything that comes to us is always right. And so let's say we find it in our heart and we say, this feels like anxiety. And then what we do is we feel the anxiety and we just then feel underneath the anxiety, knowing that everything is always right. And maybe under the anxiety, we feel uncertainty or whatever word comes up. And we feel it for a moment. And then we go underneath that and we say, and what's underneath that? And perhaps that could be upsetness or sabotage or disillusionment. And we keep going through this process very slowly, breathing and just taking our time. The pivotal point, and most people think they're wrong when they get to this point, is they'll get to a point where the answer is, I don't know. And it's actually the right answer, because I don't know is the moment the ego gives up control of the process. And then we say, what's underneath I don't know? And 1 to 2 or 3 layers under I don't know is actually light, love, joy, and oneness. And each layer that we've gone through is a different layer of incarnation, a different emotional imprinting. And it allows us to clear the layers of emotional density, but in a way where we're befriending our feelings instead of having an oppositional relationship with it. Again, as always, to clear, to transmute, but always in the name of love.
Beautiful. So where can people go to experience workshops with you, sessions with you, more information with you?
Well, for a listing of upcoming events, to be a part of my free newsletter, I send out every Sunday. My website is mattkahn.org. That's www.mattkahn.org. I also have free videos on YouTube, many of them. And it's just, a true honor to serve at this time and to be a part of this incredible awakening where, even though it looks like life can look like it's being flipped upside down, it is an even more fertile opportunity and invitation to be a part of the most extraordinary shift that we and all of our ancestors and other avatars have been prophesizing and preparing for. And so it's quite an honor to be here and to serve everyone.
You have a regular YouTube broadcast where you talk?
I post videos. I'm going to probably get back to starting to post videos every other month, but I have a monthly, 2 calls a month I do called Total Integration. And once a month I do a thing called Project Resolution, which is a free global meditation, where every month it's a theme of taking something in the world in headlines and using our light to add positive change to what we're seeing in the world.
Beautiful. What's going to be the name of your book that you're working on, that you're planning?
My next book is called Holding Space. And this is my 4th book. And it is, I believe the subtitle is How to Be with Ourselves, Connect with Others, and Face a World of Uncertainty. And it is really about how do I embody love and express compassion when I'm interacting with people of different belief systems.
Yes.
How do I hold the space of love so I'm not just, like you said earlier, in meditation, one with spirit.
And information with those who wish to find more. And we're now going to move to the question and answer section of our program. Guidelines, again, are very simple. Ask questions that others can benefit from. Don't have those deep personal questions, and make your questions short and concise. So here we go. First question, and I believe the name is pronounced Yuan, although it has an interesting spelling of I-O-A-N, but I do believe it's Yuan is how you pronounce your beautiful name, from Quebec in Canada. And Yuan is asking, or first of all stating, I was part of a spiritual group, and now I'm in your group. I realise how much I find my joy of living. My inner contacts are reactivated, and I believe everything can be possible again for my soul and my health. A person from the group that I left told me this: you will have to start all over again. You can't transfer spiritually that easily. You will lose what you have acquired. Thank you for enlightening me on this question. So, Lee, what's your response to that comment and that questions?
Yuan, when I left the Christian church, they told me the same thing. It hurt my heart. It really hurt my heart for numbers of reasons. They told me I was just going against God because I was leaving their group. That nothing I had learned would apply to what I was going to go into because it wasn't their doctrine or what they believed or their group. And basically they told me I was lost. Instead, here's what happened. I kept the entire truth that God loves me. I kept the entire feeling of what that feels like to be loved by God. I kept the feeling of being a child of God. And I learned all of that in my church. So the group I left really helped me. It was a stepping stone for what I did next. I didn't have to rewrite anything. I added to it. God got bigger for me. Answer to this question, really only you can answer this question about the group you were with. But if there was love there, and I'll bet there was, they probably helped you, and you are better because of it today. Yuan, they probably told you that because they were sorry to see you go. But the truth truly is that they probably helped in whatever way it was, if there was love there, to get you to the place where you're happy now. So I'm sorry that they said that, and I'm sorry that they lost you. But the chances are they helped you a lot.
Nice answer. And yeah, you do feel that there's love there from the people who want you to stay in touch with how they believe should be the way.
That's true,
isn't it? Yeah.
And if you think about it, it comes from a place of caring and from a heartfelt.
That's what I sensed as
thing.
well.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay, another question from Megan in Utah of the US. Megan is asking, after my spiritual awakening, I find myself sobbing at my job and aching for a more spiritually inclined and fulfilling line of work. Is there a spiritual job board anywhere or suggestions on how to find my sense of purpose? I want colour in my life. I am sick of black and white. Megan, we hear you. Absolutely. I think Lee and I both can relate to having an awakening and still being in a previous occupation and not kind of immersed into what we are now doing now.
I love spiritual job board. There probably is.
I think that's great, isn't it? Spiritual job board.
But I'll tell you what our spiritual job board became. Our spiritual message board is synchronicity. We believe in synchronicity, and we have seen it over and over with the ability of taking you out of something that is not, I would say, commensurate with your magnificence and into something that is, something that you really enjoy being part of. It doesn't have to be a spiritual thing, too. It could simply be another job which you're surrounded by perhaps kinder people or people who are a little more awake, if you wish. It has to do with, how you are and what you expect. So visualize something better. And don't decide what it's going to be. And thank Spirit every day for the spirituality that is coming in your life that would allow you to see that synchronicity. Then sit back and celebrate that it's coming. You think I'm kidding? I mean, there ought to be someday, if you could look into my personal life, into the life of Monica and my partner Monica together and what has happened, bang, 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 and you know that synchronicity is the spiritual message board, because this is what we have done. We have actually created certain kinds of situations without knowing what we were creating because of doing just that, saying, we need to move this off the peg where it is. We don't know what's going to happen, but thank you, Spirit, that it's coming. And then at the perfect time, it arrived. And we just sit back and laugh and cry that it works. That is how it's done. And that's done for all of us. That is what we teach.
So I'm going to hold intent for Megan, and I invite everyone listening to this program, let's hold intent for Megan and for anyone else who is ready for a shift, that I give thanks for the perfect synchronicity coming to me with grace and ease.
Hi, everyone, and welcome, members, to the Healing Wednesday Circle of 12. I am Lee Carroll.
And I am Monica Morani.
This is Healing Wednesday. We come together every week, and we have, as many of you know, special guests. We have questions and answers, which we're going to do. We have discussions, which we often do, maybe, meditations, and, of course, always have channeling. This is a members meeting. This is the fourth one of the month now. You might ask, what do we do on the fifth Wednesday of the month? We have a meeting. So you tune in next week because we're going to have the favorite Wednesday, fifth Wednesday. Now that's for English speakers. If you're a Spanish speaker and you are on this portal, why? You should be on the Spanish portal, but I will tell you, there's a special Spanish show for you coming on the fifth Wednesday of this month. All right. For you members, were you aware we have an audio of every single show for those of you who perhaps would want to listen instead of watch and listen? And that happens when your internet isn't strong, and we know that's true. We also have an index which talks about every single show we've done, talks about what happened, who the guests were, when it happened, and also what the discussions were in the channel and what happened in the Circle of 12. Monica has made that index. She continues to. She is a great archivist, and that's one of the great things that she does for us. All the replays for a whole year so far are available to the members, only the members, and they're available through this index, and you can find them, and they're available as long as you're a member. Now, we're starting another year of programs, and that means that there's going to be another 50. So this time next year, I'm going to be sitting here telling you there's 100 programs, and they don't go away, and that's for every single member. So that is what you get with membership, and thank you so much for being a member here with us. If you are looking at this and it is live streaming and it's not working well, and sometimes that happens, and sometimes it stops and starts and whatever, if you can't correct it by refreshing and you can't find the right audio button or anything else, please don't be frustrated. Just stop and come back. Come back in about an hour or so, and you're going to find after the show that the replay is there, and it will be clean. You might do some just stay around for the chat, and even if it starts and stops, because we just love to be with our friends and all that, and then watch it later as well, and we know that's so. This month, we have a theme. Yet again, Kryon has been giving themes about, whatever. This time it's been the soul. So there's been so many themed months in channeling with Kryon. So I want to throw it to Monica for a moment and have her tell just a little bit about that.
So I love that we are getting more information on the attributes of the soul. And some of you may recall that in one of the channels given this month already, Kryon mentioned that his partner Lee would give lectures and talks on the 9 attributes of the human soul. And there's possibly some of you wondering, well, gosh, I would love to be able to know what that was or get my hands on it. Well, guess what? I have some good news for you. In the audios, the kryon.com/free audio, go to the year of 2013, look down and search for June in Mount Shasta, because that is where Kryon gave a channel and revealed all of those 9 attributes of the human soul. So that's what you can find easily for free. For those of you who want to get a little more in-depth with the study of it, well, guess what? I have actually written a book, and it is called The Human Soul Revealed. And this entire book is dedicating to giving all of the details about those 9 attributes of the human soul. And the information from Kryon is so beautiful, and it really expands our knowledge on just how big and magnificent and wondrous our human soul is. And in fact, one of the things Kryon says that you call it a human soul, which is funny because it's only a human soul because it belongs to the human, but the soul is the soul. You can't even put the name of a human soul onto it because it's way bigger than that. So I'm glad that I was able to share that little bit of research and knowledge and information with those who wish to find more. And we're now going to move to the question and answer section of our...
Welcome, everyone, to the Healing Wednesday Circle of 12. I am Lee Carroll.
And I am Monica Morani.
This is Healing Wednesday. I think you knew that because you're here to tune in. It's a time when we come together every single week with special guests, questions and answers, discussions, meditations, and channeling. Now, you might have heard me say every single week. Well, if you're watching on YouTube, it is once a month. It is free. I would like to then tell you very welcome to all of our YouTube subscribers. And then I want to give you a little perspective. Special welcome to members as well as YouTubers who receive one of these programs, as I said, every week, because we're sitting here doing these programs every week. Let me give you this perspective I want to. If you are not a member, but you follow the Circle of 12 and have been, for instance, on YouTube for a full year, this is your 13th program. Thank you for being with us. If you are a member, however, this is program 53. I'll let that sink in for just a moment. Yes, we do this, and we sit here every single week of the year and give you the best programs we can with the best guests we can with channeling and discussions and Q&A. And there, if you remember, there's a replay of everything we've done. You get all of the replays. You can watch them as many times as you want. There's no limit. You have audios only of every show in case you don't wish to watch them and you want to listen to them. There's special music on the portals. There's special programs like a Q&A program. It's over an hour long. We just finished. There's a big index so you can find your way around these 50 programs. We have just signed up for another year to do this. And when I say signed up, I mean that's a personal thing. We're going to do it. That's going to be 100 programs before we're done. So it's easy to subscribe. If you wish to know more, it's KryonMasters.com. Now, streaming, it's different than just watching a video, and you know that. If there are any problems with this stream, if it starts, it stops, your internet perhaps is not working as well, or ours is not working as well, here is my advice for all of you, both in YouTube and also members. Wherever you are looking at this, whatever device, if it's a problem, I say this every time, we did not design this program to be frustrating technically. So for your YouTube, there'll be a replay available shortly. If you're a member, we try to give it to you, this replay, within an hour after this program stops. So there are replays for all of you. So just stop a program if it is frustrating. I don't want this to interrupt the consciousness of your beautiful enjoyment and the magnificence of who you are with technical issues. Stop and watch the replay later. So this is our advice to all of you. Much rather have that than not.
Well, thank you, Lee, for guiding us through all of those important information. And what I'd like to do now is move into our question and answer section. And our first question comes from someone who wants to be anonymous. They are asking, with all the world problems and sufferings, and my goodness, there certainly are quite a few, wouldn't you say? Why don't you, Lee or Monica, ever mention them in the question and answer section, or why is it not addressed in the Circle of 12? It would seem like it is the perfect place to work with these issues. Well, thank you for your question. Lee, what do you have to respond?
I want to respond, and I want it to be slow. I want it to sink in. I want everybody to truly understand this from the experience we've had. This is on purpose. It is on purpose. So I want you to hear this. All of you, right now, whatever device you're looking at this on, you are 3 clicks away, or perhaps even less, of all of the suffering, all the death reports, all the hurricane distress, fear, anger, all of the awful things that are happening in our country with politics, the wars of the planet. 3 clicks away. You can have it all. We're not going to give it to you. We're not going to give you any of that. However, that's not what the question is really, truly asking. So here is the way I'm going to answer. Why don't we actually describe these things, or perhaps involve the people and the subjects? Monica and I very recently were in a Hindu temple. And we got a chance to take a look at some of the attributes of the temple. This particular temple was under construction, and we've also been in temples in India. We've been in temples all over the world that have some of these same attributes. The one I'm going to describe to you is the one I want you to hear. There were some interesting looking things like gargoyles, were pretty scary things that were carved at the entrance. Scary in the fact that you wouldn't think it would be something commensurate with meditation and grandness and the things that you do in a temple. And I'm right, they're not. So we ask about them. And the man who was leading us through this, I would say, tour of this temple under construction, he said, "These are the reminders to," and I quote him, "when you come into this temple, leave your duality outside." Now, he's not talking about the issues of fear, anger, politics, all of these things. He's talking about your duality. Now, that is saying leave the consciousness of duality out before you enter this temple, so that when you come into this temple, all that you have is your magnificence as a God-given creature, and not all the duality that comes with the humanism. I want to give you something to think about. The Circle of 12, for over a year, the concept of it, what Kryon told me to do with it. He said, "Lee, this is a temple."